Hello everybody, welcome to November. On November 5th, we have School Spirit Day. On the 11th and 12th is no school due to Veterans Day and our school conferences. On the 16th and 17th, we have half days, and those are half days for conferences. On the 19th, we have Superhero Day. So students can wear a t-shirt with a cool superhero on it. On the 22nd, fourth graders will have our SPAC dance residency. We're going to stream that live, so it's going to be a great production. And on the 24th, 25th, and 26th, we have our Thanksgiving holiday. For something fun, we thought we would do a tour of Burnt Hills Boston Lake. Last year, we did a tour of Charlton on my handy horse. Unfortunately, the horse is a little bit tired this year. So we did a walking tour of Burnt Hills Boston Lake. I hope you enjoy it. This is the Burnt Hills Ace Hardware Store. It used to be just called the Burnt Hills Hardware Store and was owned by Roy Cunningham. It was an outgrowth of a blacksmith shop owned by Frank Hall. One little fun fact is there used to be a watering hole a little bit behind here. Now it's been filled in, so you'd never even know it. The corner of Kingsley and Lake Hill Road used to be a two-room schoolhouse. The front area was for children in grades 5 through 8, and the back room was for kids in grades 1 through 5. Now, students didn't attend school all year. Back then, they only attended in the summer and the winter, because in the spring, the kids were needed for planting, and the fall, the kids were needed for the harvest. Now, there's an interesting story about a teacher named John Marvin. He was from New York City, and I guess things didn't really work out for him because one day the kids threw him out the window. He was never seen again. Poor Mr. Marvin. This is the Kingsley Inn, and it was opened by William Kingsley in 1797. It used to be a stop on the stagecoach route between Ballston Spa and Schenectady. The inn features 25 rooms, wide plank floors, and a huge pine bar. Next to the Kingsley Inn used to be Bayless's Barber Shop. It was owned by Earl Bayless. Now, not only was he a barber, but he was a repairer of fine clocks. He claimed that he fixed a clock for General Burgoyne in the Revolutionary War. The Falconer family used to run an apple stand right here on their property. Many villagers fondly remember that it was converted to a manger during the Christmas season. Now, on this property, there used to be ball fields, and the fields were used for the Burnt Hills Social and Athletic Club. Saunders Mansion, or the Elms, was the home of a Revolutionary War soldier, Stephen Clark. In 1965, this house was moved from its location on Route 50 and Lake Hill Road to its present location to make room for a gas station. Must have been hard. This is Hillside Cemetery, right next to the Burnt Hills Baptist Church. The first burial took place in 1793. One of the families who's buried here are the Betty's family. Their son Joseph was a spy, a traitor for the British in the Revolutionary War. This is Forecastle Farms. It was opened in 1906 by Claude Bailey. Some of you might not know that Forecastle is named for the forecastle, which is the part of the ship where the crew slept. Pretty interesting. This is the Calvary Episcopal Church. It was built in 1849. The Fellowship Hall was built in 1877. Guess what you couldn't do in the Fellowship Hall? You couldn't dance or play cards. Oh my gosh! Instead, what they did is they hosted amateur dramatics, they had harvest suppers, and even lectures were held there. This is Stevens Elementary School, but it used to be the school for all of the kids in the entire district. Now in 1916, when the school was being constructed, the stakes disappeared. They were moved in the middle of the night. They were moved from one part closer to the road, a lot farther away from Lake Hill Road. Some say it was George Schauber and Claude Bailey who did the moving. It allowed for a more spacious front lawn, and it also allowed for the parking lot right now. Graduation from the high school was a 2-day event. On Saturday, it was class day. That's when the king and the queen of the class were chosen. That evening, it was a special tea dance. On Sunday, that's when diplomas were distributed at the baccalaureate. The students back then were known as the Hillers, not as the Spartans. I think they probably enjoyed this big hill. Some say back then that the hill was only good for sledding that went down towards Ballston Lake. Who would have ever thought that all the cars and the traffic would be traveling up that hill? The school burned down on March 30th, 1929. There were 333 students enrolled at the time. Everybody from town came to see the ruins. Now, lunchtime was a little bit different back then because they didn't have a cafeteria where it is now. Instead, it was down in the basement. Guess what their favorite food was? Everybody loved the macaroni and cheese. Ketchum's store was built in the late 1800s at the bottom of Lake Hill Road. They sold lots of things there and it was very popular. However, being at the bottom of the road, at least 4 automobiles went right through the front windows. In 1899, Theodore Roosevelt came to visit right here in Ballston Lake, New York. He had his picture taken right in front of Ketchum's store. Henry Parkus purchased the Seabury cider mill in 1927. He added the 2 huge silos for buckwheat. What he did was he bought an International tractor. He gave it to the farmers right here in Ballston Lake in exchange for them giving him buckwheat, which he stored in these silos. The buckwheat was used to make fine pancake flour. Very industrious. In 1840, this was called the Ballston Lake Hotel. In 1936, it was named the Kearney's Tavern. Now back then in 1936, teachers were not allowed to go in taverns. It was said that some Board of Education members would sometimes stop by to check up on them. In 1816, this was the building for the Ballston Lake Fire Department. It's the 2nd oldest in continuance in New York State. Pretty amazing. This is the town of Ballston bike path. Believe it or not, it's paved over where the trolley once rode. Come and take a walk anytime or ride your bike. The railroad was a big business boom to Ballston Lake when it opened in 1831. The railroad traveled from Schenectady to Saratoga. The first cars were pulled by horses. The trip took over 1 hour. Steam engines ran from 1877 to 1922. This is George Shorey's first artist studio. It was built in 1914. He used to teach art classes here during the summer. George Shorey was an artist, violinist, and a playwright. His plays were presented at the Calvary Episcopal Fellowship Hall. The Burnt Hills Diner used to be right here, next to the old Veeder and Yelverton. It was also close to the Fireman's Pond, which we talked about earlier. Why did they call it Burnt Hills? Some say the Native Americans used to burn the hills here, and the new growth would entice game for easy hunting. Who knew? This is the Asa Waterman house. Asa Waterman claimed that he carried Benedict Arnold off the field at Bemis Heights in 1777. He later regretted it when he found out that Benedict Arnold was a traitor.
Happy, happy, happy birthday. It's your birthday today. Happy, happy, happy birthday.
you need to mock the guest of honor.
Happy, happy, happy birthday. A toast to you.